In the borderlands between Stonefang and Whisperwood, the rivers run two colors. One stream, born from the granite heart of Lorcan's mountains, flows cold and clear over gray stone. The other, winding from the ancient roots of Genevieve's forest, is dark with the memory of fallen leaves and rich soil. They meet in a churn of eddying currents, a constant, silent argument that never resolves, and for 100 miles they run together as one, neither conquering the other. It was a truth everyone knew, and no one spoke aloud. The river was the mirror of their leaders. The first time Genevieve of Whisperwood met Lorcan of Stonefang, she was 9 years old, furious, and covered in mud. It was the annual border summit, the 1 week each year when the two packs gathered at the river's meeting point to negotiate trade, settle disputes, and pretend they didn't find each other deeply irritating. The children were expected to play together in a display of alliance solidarity. In practice, this meant they formed two hostile camps on opposite sides of the summit field and glared at each other with the sincere intensity only children can muster. Genevieve, the only daughter of Alpha Theron, had been told very clearly to behave, make friends, and not bite anyone. She had managed 2 of these. Biting was still under review. The boy had appeared on the ridge above the river, dark-haired, serious-faced, with amber eyes that seemed too old for his body. He was standing on her side of the waterline. "You're on my territory," she announced, marching up the ridge with her chin raised. He looked down at her. "The ridge is neutral ground. The ridge is on the Whisperwood side of the waterline. My father said so." "Your father is wrong." She punched him, square in the jaw, with a right hook her uncle had taught her in secret, and that she had been waiting for an appropriate occasion to deploy. He went down, more from surprise than force, and they rolled through the mud, a tangle of small fists and outraged dignity. It took 3 adults to separate them. Her father had been mortified. His mother had laughed until she cried. "That one," the old Queen of Stonefang had said, pointing at the muddy, scowling girl, "is going to be trouble." She'd looked at her son, who was holding a swelling jaw and staring at Genevieve with an expression equal parts fury and grudging respect. Good. They were enemies for the rest of that summit, inseparable by the next. Deep inside young Lorcan, in a place that didn't yet have words, his wolf had formed its first and most enduring opinion. Hers. This was followed, approximately 3 seconds later, by a second opinion, prompted by the throbbing in his jaw. Ow. That had been 23 years ago. In the years since, they had grown from hostile children into something far more complicated. When Genevieve's father died in the Ashfall War, and she'd taken the Alpha Mantle at 17, Lorcan, already a young king, had sent word. Not a formal condolence, a single line. "I know you'll be better than he was. Don't make me say that again." When Lorcan's mother passed 2 winters later, Genevieve had walked through a blizzard to reach Stonefang. She hadn't spoken a word. She had simply sat beside him in the cold stone chapel, her shoulder pressed against his, until the candles burned down to nothing. His wolf had added a second real opinion that night. Ours. They had built an alliance on that foundation, stronger than any treaty. They had faced down border incursions, negotiated impossible trade agreements, mediated disputes with a seamless coordination their councils found either inspiring or deeply unsettling, depending on the day. Today was a deeply unsettling day. The joint council chamber sat exactly on the border, a stone and timber hall built astride the river. Through the glass floor you could see the 2-colored water churning beneath. A masterwork of diplomatic architecture. Also, on days like this, an extremely elegant cage for 2 packs of politicians who wanted to strangle each other. "The tariff on Whisperwood timber is extortionate," growled Councillor Maeve of Whisperwood, a silver-haired woman with the disposition of a provoked badger. 3 silver per cord? It was 2 last season." "Last season we weren't rebuilding the North Pass Bridge," replied Councillor Draven of Stonefang, a thin man with a precise beard and the expression of someone who believed smiling was a frivolous use of facial muscles. 3 silver is generous." "Generous? Let's discuss the Stonefang patrol that wandered 6 miles into our territory and helped themselves to a Whisperwood deer." A lost patrol and a single deer. A breach of sovereign territory and a fat deer. At the head of the table, Genevieve and Lorcan sat side by side. They had not looked at each other in approximately 4 minutes, which was, by recent standards, an achievement. Counselor Maeve raises a valid concern about the tariff structure, Genevieve said, calm and measured. And Counselor Draven's point about infrastructure costs is well taken, Lorcan added. Perhaps a shared cost model. Whisperwood provides timber at last season's rate. Stonefang waives the crossing toll for 1 year. Brief silence while both councils processed this. Maeve and Draven exchanged the look of people who had come for a fight and were annoyed to find a reasonable solution instead. That is, Maeve began reluctantly. Acceptable, Draven finished, equally displeased about it. Under the table, Genevieve's knee bumped Lorcan's. A tiny, private gesture. Good job. He pressed back. You too. A conversation conducted entirely in kneecaps. They'd been having these conversations for years. Today, however, the contact sent a jolt up her spine that had nothing to do with trade negotiations. She pulled her knee away, slightly too fast. His hand tightened on the table edge. Her wolf, nominally lounging, nominally bored, opened one eye. After the session, Stellan fell into step beside Lorcan. Stellan was his beta, carved from the same granite as the mountains, silver-streaked hair, face a roadmap of old battles and older worries, patience possibly more durable than the stone walls themselves. He said nothing for 100 paces. Silence made Lorcan talk. Don't, Lorcan said. I haven't said anything. You're thinking loudly. I am thinking that you spent the tariff discussion looking at a point 3 inches to the left of Alpha Genevieve's face, which is where a person looks when they are trying very hard not to look at someone. I was looking at the map. The map was to your right. Lorcan's jaw ticked. Leave it. Left, for now. On the other side of the summit field, an identical conversation was unfolding with significantly less subtlety. So, Anwin said, dropping onto the bench beside Genevieve. Anwin was her beta, younger, self-preservation instincts of a lemming. Interesting session. Productive session. Sure, yes, the politics. I meant the thing where you and the King of Stonefang were doing the thing again. What thing? The thing where you finish each other's sentences and solve everyone's problems and look at each other like... A vague, expansive gesture. Like what? Like that. That is not the description. It defies description. Idris saw it. Idris doesn't notice anything that isn't a track in the dirt. We have a strong working partnership. And the knee thing under the table? Genevieve went still. How? Gap in the front panel. It was an accident. You bumped his knee, pulled away like his leg was on fire, and he gripped the table so hard I thought he'd leave fingerprints. That is not an accident. That is a crisis. Drop it. Dropped. Into her water cup. For now. That evening, the feast. Both packs in the great pavilion, long tables laden with food from both territories. Stonefang brought smoked venison, hard cheese, and a dark ale that could strip paint. Whisperwood brought roasted fish, honey cakes, wildberry wines, and bread so good it had been known to resolve minor territorial disputes on its own. Genevieve and Lorcan at the head table, side by side. The distance between them didn't feel comfortable. It felt electric. It had been building for months. Not the friendship. That was bedrock. This was something else. Something in the spaces between words, in the half-second too long of held eye contact, in the way his scent had started to register differently. Pine and cold stone. She'd known it since she was 9. It had always meant safety. Lately, it meant something that made her wolf pace. The honey cakes are exceptional this year, Lorcan said, reaching across her for the platter. His arm passed close enough that she caught the full force of his scent. Her wolf sat bolt upright. Bryn's been experimenting, she replied, voice mercifully steady. New hives from the southern groves. He settled back, took a bite. A crumb clung to the corner of his mouth. She had the sudden, vivid, absolutely unacceptable urge to reach over and brush it away. She looked at her wine. Her wolf was staring at the crumb with the focus of a heat-seeking missile. Stop it, she told her wolf. Her wolf did not stop it. Her wolf had, in fact, zoomed in. Across the table, Lorcan's wolf, a presence of very few words, had noticed her noticing the crumb. Good. The evening wore on. Lorcan told a story about a merchant who tried to sell him a genuine dragon tooth that was a painted cow's rib. If this is a dragon's tooth, then I am the Emperor of the West. And he looked me dead in the eye and said, "My liege, you look very imperial today." The table erupted. Lorcan's eyes found hers across the laughter, and he grinned. A real grin, unguarded, the kind that erased the king and left just the man. Her heart did something complicated and unforgivable. Anwen caught it. Stellan caught Anwen catching it. The two betas exchanged a glance. We see it, they don't. This is going to be a disaster. Later, he walked her to the Whisperwood camp edge. A tradition. Tonight, it felt like a dare. They stopped at the tree line. The two-colored river murmured. "Good summit," she said. "Good summit." A strand of hair escaped her braid. She reached to tuck it. He reached at the same moment. Their hands collided. His fingers brushed her temple, her cheekbone, the curve of her ear. Neither moved. His wolf was vibrating at a frequency that should have been audible from space. His contribution to this pivotal moment? Now. "Jen," he said softly, and the way he said it was so different from every other time that it might as well have been a different word. She stepped back. "Good night, Lorcan." His hand dropped. His eyes held a question he was choosing not to ask, because he knew she needed to be the one to cross first. His wolf's review of this decision? No. She walked into the forest. Behind her, he exhaled, a long, slow breath, the sound of restraint that should have qualified for an award. Her wolf was incandescent. "You walked away? You walked away? He was right there. His hand was on your face. What exactly is the plan here, Genevieve? Die alone and well organized? Is that the plan?" "Shut up," she muttered. Her wolf had a slideshow. The crumb, the grin, the hand on the face, and a comprehensive timeline of missed opportunities going back 15 years. She was considering adding background music. Lorcan's wolf was handling it with characteristic eloquence. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Then quieter, sadder. Waiting. It was going to be a very long night. The sparring circle existed because they needed it. Some truths were too large for council chambers, too fragile for feasts. The circle, trodden into the earth precisely on the border, had been their solution since they were teenagers. They met there the morning after the feast. Neither mentioned the night before. It sat between them like a lit fuse. Jen's wolf was running pre-game commentary. Lorcan's wolf was repeating one word with increasing volume. Now. 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 Genevieve moved like water, her practice blade flowing around his granite defense, bare feet on packed dirt. All fluid grace, deceptive power. Lorcan was her opposite, rooted, immovable, each block a definitive statement, each parry a brutal full stop. "Sloppy," he grunted, deflecting a lunge at his ribs. "Your wolf is distracted." "My wolf is bored. She's been watching you do the same 4 moves for 20 years. She is, in fact, asleep." Her wolf was not asleep. Her wolf was cataloging the way his tunic stretched across his shoulders. Traitor. "Consistency is mastery," he forced her back a step, then 2. "Consistency is a very polite word for what you're doing." She dropped low, swept at his ankles. He leaped over it, surprising for a man built like a castle wall, and landed with a thud that shook the ground. "Nimble for an old man." "I'm the same age as you." And yet, he was on her, blade a blur, block, parry, retreat. Last night's unspoken moment hummed between every strike. She pressed closer than tactics required. He held ground half a second longer than he should have. Her back hit the boundary post. Trapped. His body caged her in, his sword at her throat, hers at his side. Stalemate. His amber eyes, wolf bright, stared into hers. The gold was swirling, deepening. He was seeing through her, past the alpha, past the friend. Her wolf had gone very, very still. The kind of still before something catastrophic. His wolf had gone very, very still. The kind of still a predator achieves in the final second before the strike. Now. I yield, she whispered. A lie. Her wolf was furious at the admission, and also furious at the 5 inches of air still between them. Multitasking fury. Very efficient. His eyes narrowed. No, you don't. His voice was rough, vibrating through the point of contact at her throat, straight into her bones. The tension snapped, an inevitability building since she was 9 years old and punched him on a muddy ridge. If their wolves could talk, Jen's would have delivered a 20-minute victory speech with footnotes, and Lorcan's would have said, "Finally." He dropped his sword. She dropped hers. The world fell silent. Forehead against hers, his scent overwhelming. His hands cupping her face, trembling. The king of Stonefang, whose grip could bend iron, shaking because he was touching her face. This time she didn't step back. Jen, he breathed. Prayer, curse, question. Her fingers curled into his tunic. And then his mouth was on hers, not gentle, a collision. 23 years of almost, nearly, not yet. His lips firm and demanding. She met him with equal force. A growl rumbled in his chest. Her wolf rose to meet it. 2 decades late and right on time. Instinct took over. His teeth grazed her scent gland, the most intimate gesture in their language. She arched into him. Yes. He bit down, not breaking skin, but possessive, marking, claiming. Her fangs descended. She found his throat and returned the mark. Equal. Not submission. Declaration. You are mine, and I am yours. They broke apart gasping. Their mingled scent, potent, unmistakable, taboo. 2 alphas claiming each other. A political impossibility. Also, logistically, going to be extremely difficult to explain to their councils. His wolf, for the first time in its existence, attempted a complex thought. Mine, hers, ours. Good. Done. Finally. Yes. 7 words, a personal record. He was going to need a lie down. And in that moment, seeing the terrifying vulnerability in the strongest man she'd ever known, Genevieve's carefully constructed world shattered. Panic, cold and sharp. What had they done? History was a graveyard of alpha pairings. Twin fangs, sundering of the silver moon. Love to rivalry, rivalry to bloodshed. This wasn't madness. This was inevitability. Coming since the ridge, the blizzard, every knee bump and spar, and every time she'd thought mine and shoved it down. Lorcan. She stepped back. His scent on her skin felt like a brand. His expression shifted, adoration to confusion to hurt. Jen? We can't. We just did. It makes us stronger. It makes us a target. Draven already watches me like I'm planning an invasion. They will look for cracks and drive wedges until we shatter. Her wolf was howling at her to shut up and put her mouth back where it had been doing something useful for once. Lorcan's wolf, who had just achieved his 7-word personal best, was experiencing his first complex emotion. It was confusion, laced with dawning horror. No? Let them try, Lorcan growled. We are not the failures in the history books. We're no different. We're arrogant enough to think we are. Even though this had been the best 30 seconds of her entire life. Not relevant, not helpful, moving on. She backed toward her territory. The bond screamed. Her wolf began a detailed lecture with visual aids. There was a diagram, there was a pie chart of her life spent making bad decisions, and the pie was entirely one color. Jen, don't, pleading now. The man who'd sat with her through her father's funeral, who'd never flinched from her sharpest words. Don't run from this. I'm not running. I'm retreating. There's a difference. She turned before he could see the tears. It's the only strategic move left. She walked away, every step like tearing a piece of her soul loose. Behind her, Lorcan stood perfectly still. His wolf, who had weathered the entire experience with increasing distress, finally settled on a response. His longest thought to date. A full sentence. Unprecedented. She is wrong. We wait. Then, the hardest one. Still ours. Her wolf moved on to the silent treatment. His wolf settled into watchful, aching stillness. Somehow, both were worse. The scent didn't fade. 3 weeks. Haunted. She scrubbed herself raw, tried 3 herb-infused soaps, and in a moment of true desperation, rubbed herself with wild garlic. She now smelled like pine, cold stone, and a very confused Italian kitchen. Her wolf was miserable, pacing, constantly turning toward the mountains. When she wasn't whining, she was replaying the kiss on loop, like a petty, furry projectionist. She'd added the tree line scene, double feature. The knee bump was in post-production for a full trilogy. Genevieve threw herself into duties, organized the supply stores, reorganized them, organized them a third time, by color. Useless for supplies, very soothing for her deteriorating mental state. Anwen watched with the expression of a woman failing spectacularly to not say, "I told you so," with her entire face. "You haven't slept," Anwen stated, placing tea on the map-buried desk. "Too much to do." "You organized grain by color." "Visual inventory management is underrated." "The wheat and barley are the same color." "One is golden amber, the other is pale gold. Clear distinction." "There is not a clear distinction." "I can recommend a healer for your eyesight." Anwen ignored this. "Your wolf is grieving. We all feel it." Bryn in the kitchens burned 3 loaves because, quote, the sadness got in them. The sadness did not get in the bread. "She's very sensitive," Anwen gentled. "A messenger from Stonefang came. You sent him away before he could speak." "Formal correspondence, official channels." "It was a letter with the king's personal seal. He's been writing you notes since you were 17. You slammed the door in his face." Through a terrified 17-year-old who might have cried on the way home. Guilt, sharp and hot, pushed down. Professional pusher-downer. "What we did was a mistake. Maybe 2 alphas bonded wouldn't be a weakness. You already run this alliance like a single mind. You solved Maeve and Draven with a knee bump." "I considered history, Anwen." Quiet. Then, "And what about for the good of Genevieve?" Unanswered. The one variable she kept dividing by 0. Genevieve is her pack. Even she heard how hollow it sounded. Anwen placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm here, you stubborn, magnificent idiot," and left. Meanwhile, in Stonefang, Lorcan was in the armory. This was where he brooded. Other men brooded in bedchambers or at the bottom of a bottle. Lorcan brooded while sharpening swords that didn't need sharpening. Every blade, twice. If swords could feel concern for their owner, they'd have staged an intervention. His wolf sat in the back of his mind, doing the wolf equivalent of staring at a wall. Waiting. It should have been simple. His wolf was built for patience. But this was the kind of waiting that wore grooves into stone. Stellan found him on the 3rd whetstone of the evening. "She's refusing all contact, doubling border patrols inward, fortifying against a memory. She sent my messenger away, a 17-year-old boy. She is afraid. She walked through a blizzard for me, without a coat, 7 hours, never said a word." He set the sword down. "And now she won't read a letter." His wolf stirred, hurt. Then, solution-oriented as always, "Go." "Not yet." And his wolf subsided, because the man and the beast were the same creature. Patient, stubborn, certain. "The council is whispering," Stellan said carefully. "They smell her on you." Draven's exact words. "My king, with the greatest respect, you smell like a forest, and not the kind we own." "This is gravity, Stellan. You saw her hit me." "Excellent right hook." A sigh. "But they see a king marked by a foreign alpha, and they see a leash." Love is a luxury. An alpha bond is a declaration of war. Then we teach them a new story. How? Storm her borders and you prove her right. Lorcan's wolf, enthusiastically in favor of the storming plan, grudgingly acknowledged the point. In the meantime, Stellan added delicately, you might consider bathing in something other than your own misery. Kale told me this morning that, and I quote, the king smells like heartbreak and wet dog. I should not have to relay that sentence to my sovereign. Kale said that? Kale is very observant. Kale will be assigned to latrine duty. Kale is your best warrior. You will need him when you inevitably do something heroic and reckless. Lorcan's wolf offered his own assessment. Funny, useful, keep. The first reports were subtle. Missing patrol on Whisperwood's northern border. A merchant caravan raided. Genevieve saw the pattern, too coordinated. Probes, testing for weaknesses. Her wolf, who had spent 3 weeks running the greatest hits of Lorcan's face, snapped to attention. This was a language they both spoke fluently. She sent Idris, a quiet, lethal tracker who, if he looked grim, the situation was grim. And if he looked cheerful, the world was probably ending, and he found that funny. It's a pack, Alpha. Rogues, exiles, cast-offs. They call their leader Voss. Voss? Anwin frowned. Gamma under the old Crimson River pack. Preached old ways. Brutal dominance. Very tedious at dinner parties. He says peace is corruption. They're in the dead marshes. Disciplined. Hungry. Everyone in the dead marshes is hungry, Anwin muttered. Nothing grows there but misery and mosquitoes. Genevieve stared at the map. All attacks on her territory. Testing the Alpha standing alone. The realization. He was exploiting the fracture she created. By pushing Lorcan away, she'd painted a target on her own back. Her wolf didn't say, I told you so. The silence was eloquent. The probes became skirmishes. Voss's wolves struck and melted away. War of attrition. Genevieve was brilliant, caught 3 raiding parties in 1 week. But Whisperwood was smaller. Its strength had always been cunning and its ally. Now fighting alone. Bryn had stopped burning bread and started stress baking, which meant an alarming surplus of rage-fueled sourdough. The siege came on the new moon. Voss threw everything at Blackwood Ford. Horns blaring, chaos. Genevieve fought at the head, a whirlwind of controlled fury, but outnumbered. Anwin went down, a scarred rogue tearing a deep gash in her shoulder. Genevieve took the rogue apart, but the damage was done. They held the ford. The cost was written in blood on every face. Dawn. The battlements. She looked toward the Stonefang Mountains. She could send for Lorcan, but he would come as a rescuer. The balance would shatter. Her wolf broke the silent treatment. Not with anger, with a single exhausted question. How much more are you willing to lose to be right? We will hold. Ourselves. Her wolf lay down, head on paws. Eyes closed. Not agreement. Grief. The proudest, most foolish decision of her life. Lorcan knew. The bond, frayed but not broken, was screaming. His scouts confirmed. Siege, rogue pack, 2-to-1 odds. She hasn't sent for aid, Lorcan said, already shrugging into armor. His wolf, 3 weeks of glacial patience, felt the alarm. The patience evaporated. What replaced it came from a place deeper than thought. Now. Her pride is formidable, Stellan said. The single most irritating trait of an otherwise extraordinary woman. It's not pride, it's fear. His eyes burned. She is wrong, and I am done waiting. The army, no, not the army. Stellan's eyebrows rose 1 millimeter. His equivalent of someone falling out of a chair. I'm not rescuing her. I'm fighting with her. There is a difference. He turned to Kale, hovering near the door, with the expression of a man who smelled redemption from hypothetical latrine duty. Pick 20. Fastest, quietest. We travel now. That's suicide. Voss expects an army. He's not expecting a king in the mud. Ah, said Stellan, the heroic and reckless thing, right on schedule. Lorcan's wolf was already running. In his mind, already there, already at her side. The body just had to catch up. Stellan, if I don't return, the pack is yours. Try not to die. The paperwork would be appalling. They rode like wraiths. Lorcan pushed them relentlessly. He could feel her exhaustion, her pain. Kale had the sense not to talk for 6 hours. On the 7th, my king, when we arrive, we fight. Yes, but tactically, we fight beside her. Understood, but Kale. Fighting, beside her. Got it. 2 miles of silence. She's going to be furious you came. I know. Just making sure we're all prepared. A pause. Emotionally. Ride faster. 3 more miles passed. Behind Kale, a warrior named Tormund leaned toward the rider beside him. Is the king always like this? Only when it involves the Whisperwood Alpha. So, always? Welcome to the guard. They arrived on the 2nd night. Voss had renewed his assault. Blood, smoke, burning wood. Lorcan circled through the woods. They dismounted. They shifted. His wolf was immense. Midnight fur, molten gold eyes. For the first time in weeks, man and beast in perfect, unified agreement. His wolf's pre-battle assessment of the situation was, characteristically, comprehensive. Many. Angry. Don't care. Lorcan let out a single, low howl. Not a challenge to Voss. A call to Genevieve. I am here. His wolf added, quieter, always. From within the besieged fortress, a silver-gray wolf lifted her head. Every muscle went rigid. She knew that howl the way she knew her own heartbeat. The sound that escaped her, half snarl, half sob, had no human translation. Her wolf, running on fumes and fury for days, heard it and came alive. Not with dramatic monologues or slideshows, something simpler, more powerful. He came. Then, because she was who she was. He came and I am going to kill him, and then kiss him, and then kill him again. Lorcan crashed into Voss's exposed flank, a silent, deadly wave. Outnumbered 10-1, but elite. Kale was having the time of his life. His wolf, a sociable creature with a flair for the dramatic, was treating the entire battle like a very aggressive dinner party, greeting each new opponent with genuine enthusiasm before putting them on the ground. Lorcan fought toward her, ignoring the lesser fighters. His wolf tracked her through the chaos with single-minded precision, a compass needle that only pointed one direction. There. There. There! He found her at the broken gate. A blur of savage grace, holding the breach almost alone. Tiring. Surrounded. Still fighting with the focused fury of a true alpha, but the edges were fraying. Voss saw his chance. The hulking, mud-brown wolf charged. Lorcan was already moving. Black thunderbolt. He intercepted Voss mid-charge, the collision like a thunderclap. Jaws on shoulder, shaking until the rogue howled. Voss scrambled back, eyes wide. He hadn't factored a king into his calculations. This was, it was becoming clear, a significant oversight. Voss's wolf, which had spent months building a very detailed and very confident battle plan, was now experiencing the unique sensation of watching that plan catch fire. Lorcan didn't press the attack. He had one priority. He moved to Genevieve's side, taking position at her back, their bodies brushing a wall. Her wolf stilled, recognized him. There was a brief, furious internal debate, her pride snarling, her heart overruling it, her wolf delivering her final ultimatum. If you ruin this, I swear on every moon that has ever risen, I will make you itch in places you cannot scratch. His wolf, feeling her through the bond, offered his contribution. Here. Stay. Fight. 3 words. Exactly enough. The bond roared back to life. They began to move as one. 23 years of sparring, of knowing each other's rhythms, took over. He anticipated her feints. She covered his lunges. When she dropped low to hamstring a rogue, he was already leaping over her. When he drove an attacker back, she was there, a silver flash at its throat. His wolf's running commentary during the synchronized combat was a masterclass in brevity. Left, duck, mine, hers. Left again, big one, got him, good. Her wolf's commentary was different. Oh, they are going to write songs about this. They are going to write songs, and I am going to make her listen to every single one. 23 years I have been waiting, duck. 23 years, and she organized grain by color instead of his right flank, cover it. I swear when this is over, I am never letting her make a decision again. I am in charge now. His power was her shield. Her speed was his sword. The rogues faced an impossible two-headed beast, angry, coordinated, 23 years overdue for a proper reunion, and currently being piloted by two wolves who had very strong feelings about the situation. Hope surged through the Whisperwood defenders. They rallied. Anwen, bandaged and bleeding, dragged herself to a vantage point and said, through a haze of pain and vindication, I am never letting her live this down. A young Whisperwood warrior beside her stared at the two alphas carving through the rogues in perfect unison. How are they doing that? They haven't fought together in weeks. Anwen, clutching her injured shoulder and grinning like a lunatic, replied, They've been fighting together for 23 years. They just didn't know what they were fighting for. Voss watched his army crumble. He had gambled on division. He had built his entire strategy on the assumption that two alphas who couldn't agree on their own relationship certainly couldn't agree on a battlefield. He had been, it turned out, catastrophically wrong about that. His wolf, surveying the wreckage of their careful planning, offered a rare moment of self-reflection. Bad idea. Very bad idea. Leaving now. He gave the signal for retreat. His broken pack melted into darkness. Silence descended. Groans of the wounded, ragged breathing. They stood back to back for a long moment, then shifted. Caked in mud, blood, bruised, bleeding. He had a deep gash on his forearm. She was favoring her left leg. Filthy and wrecked, the most beautiful things either of them had ever seen. She turned to face him. You came. You didn't ask. He brushed mud from her cheek, same gesture as the tree line. This time, no one pulled away, which, for the record, was extremely annoying. Half laugh, half sob. I was trying to be noble and self-sacrificing and wrong. Yes, I noticed. I was going to say, protect the alliance. Same thing. She stared at him. This impossible, infuriating mountain of a man who had ridden through the night with 20 wolves because he refused to let her be noble alone. I was wrong, Lorcan. So wrong. I thought this would be our ruin. I built walls, and all I did was leave us exposed. And I brought 20 idiots through a forest at midnight to prove it's our foundation. He stepped closer. I am not here to rule you, Jen, or to save you. I am here to stand with you. There is no debt. There is only us. Tears, 3 weeks' worth, tracing clean paths through the grime. Every argument, every precedent crumbled against one truth. He had seen her as his equal, not a damsel, his partner. She threw her arms around his neck. He held her tight. Two sovereigns finding their kingdom. Inside her, her wolf let out a long, shuddering exhale. Not grief, bone-deep relief. Inside him, his wolf settled into place, steady and sure. Home. Behind them, Kale leaned toward a Whisperwood warrior. Are they always like this? This is new. Well, Kale wiped blood off his jaw. Good fight. The best. They nodded. The beginning of a beautiful friendship. Dawn, rebuilding. Lorcan's warriors alongside Whisperwood. No rescue, solidarity. One people. Genevieve's wolf was purring, which wolves didn't technically do, but no one had informed her wolf of this. Her wolf didn't care. Her wolf was going to purr, and nobody was going to stop her. She had earned this purr. She had waited 23 years and endured 3 weeks of grain-based coping mechanisms for this purr. Lorcan's wolf had reduced the entire post-battle landscape to one satisfied thought, repeated like a heartbeat. Good. 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 Anwen, shoulder-bound, arm in a sling, found Genevieve by the well. Radiating smugness that should have been medically impossible for someone mauled 12 hours ago, Genevieve sighed. Go ahead. I'm not going to say it. You are visibly vibrating. I just think it's interesting that the thing you said would destroy us is currently hauling lumber to fix our gate, with his shirt off, which I'm sure is practical. Genevieve did not look toward the gate. Absolutely did not. He runs warm. Stonefang trait. Mountain wolves generate more body heat. Very scientific. Anwen, I told you so. I could demote you right now. You could, but you won't, because I was right and I'm delightful. Genevieve laughed. Real. The first in 3 weeks. That evening, the repaired battlements. Dark forest, clean air. Voss will be back. He will. Next time he finds 2 packs. He turned to her. Our councils will still fear. Old stories don't die overnight. I know, but you were right. Time for a new one. She took his hand. They saw an alpha bond as a struggle for dominance. Never considered it could be a partnership of equals. Because they never saw us. Below, a bonfire. Warriors sharing food. Kale demonstrating battle moves with a chicken leg to great acclaim. 2 Whisperwood scouts were teaching a Stonefang warrior a card game. Someone had produced a fiddle. Anwen's insufferable already. She told me to look at you hauling lumber. His lips twitched. Stellan told me I smelled like heartbreak and wet dog. He did not. Quoting Kale, who I should have assigned to latrine duty, but apparently needed for the dramatic reinforcement. It wasn't a rescue. It was not a rescue. It was a reinforcement. With a very dramatic entrance. I am the model of restraint. You howled. Tactical communication. You howled my name. In wolf, my entire pack heard you. Very tactical communication. She laughed, and the sound was a key turning in a lock. He looked at their joined hands, then her face, amber eyes soft in firelight. I will not ask you to leave your forest, and I will not leave my mountains. I would not expect you to. We are alphas of our own lands. Then we will rule them, together. A soft kiss on her knuckles. From the border, where the rivers meet. Not a grand proposal, a statement of fact. There would be challenges. Draven would have a stroke. Maeve would have opinions. Anwen would be smug until the end of time. Stellan would say, I told you so, in his quiet, devastating way, and Kale would somehow take credit for everything. But standing here, hand in hand, none of it seemed insurmountable. Their alliance had always been a placeholder. Friendship, respect, sparring, knee bumps, a foundation waiting for them to build. He'd been brave first, her turn. She leaned her head against his shoulder, fear gone, unshakable peace. They watched the 2-colored river, silver and black under the rising moon. No longer division, a promise. 2 forces side by side, not to conquer, but to complete. Her wolf curled up, eyes closed, in trust. His wolf stayed awake, watching, guarding. Content the way only a wolf can be when everything that matters is within reach. His final thought, the same as his first, 23 years ago on a muddy ridge. Hers. And somewhere downstairs, Kale won an arm wrestling contest against a Whisperwood warrior twice his size, solidifying an interpack alliance that would, in its own small way, prove just as important as the one being forged on the battlements above. Epilogue. 6 months later. The new hall was built exactly where the sparring circle used to be. It sat on the border, straddling the river, but where the old council chamber had been a cage, this was something else. Open-walled on 3 sides, roof supported by columns of stone-fang granite and whisperwood oak, woven so tightly you couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Through the glass floor, the two-colored river still argued. Some things didn't need to change. The hall had been Genevieve's idea. The glass floor had been Lorcan's. The name, the confluence, had been Anwen's. Because Anwen had an unfortunate talent for naming things, and no one had been fast enough to stop her. The first joint council session was, by all accounts, a disaster. Draven and Maeve argued for 3 hours about chair placement. Draven wanted north-facing. Maeve wanted south. They compromised on east, which pleased no one, which meant it was fair. Lorcan and Genevieve sat through the whole thing. "We should have stepped in an hour ago," Genevieve murmured. "They need to solve their own problems." "Interesting strategy. It's how my mother trained hunting dogs." "Did you just compare our senior counselors to hunting dogs?" "I would never." A pause. The dogs were faster learners. Under the table, her knee found his. Not an accident, not a question, just hello. He pressed back. "Hello yourself." Behind them, Stellan and Anwen sat side by side, a new development. In 6 months, they discovered a deep bond. The bone-weary exhaustion of managing emotionally obtuse alphas. Anwen called it a support group. Stellan called it a strategic advisory partnership. Everyone else called it the 2 most tired people in both territories having tea and complaining. "They're doing the knee thing," Anwen whispered. "I know," Stellan replied. "Sweet. Security liability. The table still has a gap. We should fix that. Should have fixed it 6 months ago. But then we wouldn't have the story." Stellan almost smiled. Almost. Regrettably true. The councils found a rhythm. Not smooth. The rhythm of 2 packs learning that cooperation didn't require capitulation. Arguments, slammed fists, and on one memorable occasion, Maeve throwing a bread roll at Draven's head with an accuracy that suggested practice. But also progress. Joint patrols, shared trade routes, a training exchange that Kale volunteered for immediately, and that resulted in him becoming the most popular Stonefang warrior in Whisperwood history. He'd learned Bryn's honeycakes. He'd taught a drinking song with 17 verses, each worse than the last. He'd developed a deep respect for Idris, who beat him at arm wrestling 4 more times, and whom Kale now called the scariest, quiet person alive. Kale's wolf, for the record, had developed a similarly concise assessment of Idris. Terrifying. Respect. Friend? Idris's wolf, if Idris's wolf had opinions, no one had ever detected them. Idris's wolf was the only wolf in 2 territories more laconic than Lorcan's, which was a feat that bordered on the metaphysical. Voss tried once more, 2 months after the siege. Larger force, better weapons. No contingency plan for 2 alpha wolves fighting as a synchronized unit, backed by a combined army trained under Kale's enthusiasm and Idris's terrifying silence. 40 minutes. Voss's retreat lasted considerably longer, on account of the limp. Voss's wolf, reflecting on the experience during the long, painful journey back to the dead marshes, had finally achieved clarity. Different career. He did not try again. On the evening of the hall's first anniversary, Genevieve and Lorcan walked along the river. The sparring circle was a courtyard now, with a fountain the pups liked to splash in. Draven asked if we're merging territories, Genevieve said. Formally, 1 crown. What did you tell him? That if he could figure out whose crown, he was welcome to propose it to both councils simultaneously, in person, with no exits. Cruel. He stopped asking. Effective. Comfortable silence. Pine and damp earth and jasmine. Him and her and the place where those had become inseparable. Are you happy? He asked. Not casually. She stopped, turned, his amber eyes gold in moonlight, hers since a muddy ridge and a right hook, and a jaw that had forgiven her before the bruise faded. I am terrified, she said. Every day. I see the risks, the fault lines, the 100 ways this could go wrong. He waited. very good at waiting. And every day, I choose this anyway. Not because I've stopped being afraid, because you're worth being afraid for. She touched his face, thumb tracing his jaw. So yes, I am happy. His wolf. Good. Her wolf launched a sensory replay of his expression, annotated with commentary, cross-referenced with her 6-month archive of best Lorcan expressions, now running to several volumes, with a dedicated subsection for moments his eyes did the gold thing. She was considering publishing. He kissed her. Not the desperate collision of the sparring circle, though he kept that in reserve for special occasions. Slower. Certain. The kiss of a man who knew he had time. We should head back. Anwen will send a search party. Stellan already has one on standby. He calls it the contingency. Those two are worse than we are. Exactly as bad. They just express it through logistical planning instead of sparring and emotional suppression. I did not emotionally suppress anything. You organized grain by color. That was a valid management technique. It was a cry for help. It was golden amber and pale gold, and they are different colors, Lorcan. He laughed, the real one, the one that erased the king, and pulled her close. They walked back toward the lights of the confluence. Below them, the river ran on, 2 colors side by side, neither conquering the other. It turned out that was the whole point. Her wolf settled into contentment. His wolf, as always, stayed watchful. Not from danger, because everything that mattered was right here, and he had never been the type to take that for granted. His thought, as the lights grew brighter and their people's laughter reached them on the wind, was the oldest one he had, the first and the last, the only one that ever mattered. Hers, and always would be.